On this podcast, you'll find interviews with high-performing, successful individuals in life sciences. On a weekly basis, we cover their proven methods, principles, strategies, and mindsets to implement new technologies that scale to meet the needs of people in our world.
Welcome to Life Science Success Podcast. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Don. I'm a consultant in life sciences. I help companies manage complexity and increase performance. Before we get into today's interview, I wanted to again mention the organizational maturity assessment that's available on my website. You can go there and take it, and it points out key things that your organization needs to do to be able to scale as you grow into the future. My guest today is Dr. Gil Blander. Dr. Blander is an internationally recognized individual for his research in basic biology of aging and translating research discoveries into new ways of detecting and preventing age-related conditions. Welcome, Dr. Blander.
It's a pleasure to talk with you, Don.
Yeah, it should be just a great conversation between us. So yeah, thanks a lot for being here. I don't have that many people that come on and talk, interestingly enough, about age-related diseases. So it'll be interesting to talk about kind of your journey and what led you to where you are now and just everything around that. But would you mind starting with just a little bit of a background on yourself? Who are you and what is it that you do?
Sure. So I'm a scientist like you, a PhD from the Weizmann Institute of Science in Israel, and then a postdoctoral fellow at MIT. I was and still fascinated by the aging process. From a young age, I wanted to stop the clock. I wanted to live forever. I wanted to delay the onset of aging-related diseases, and that's why I decided to study biology. And then post my graduation, I moved to MIT and joined one of the best labs that studying aging, the lab of Lenny Guarente. And I studied there a longevity gene called SIR2 or SIR1 that have been shown to extend the lifespan in MEDI model organism. And when I joined MIT, I started to be exposed to the biopharmaceutical environment of Kendall Square, which is the area around MIT that has hundreds of biotech, pharmaceutical, IT companies. And I realized that maybe I can contribute more to humanity if I start my own company than being a professor in the academia. So I decided to leave the academia, move to the industry. I worked in a couple bio technology companies, and then I came with the idea of InsideTracker. And the idea is simple: how can we help a human to live better, longer, based on what's happening inside their body?
Yeah, very good. So yeah, I mean, it's interesting whenever you go through your LinkedIn profile, you have, kind of that, you could tell there's that balance of both, getting an education as well as, teaching, and then eventually just the entrepreneurship kind of, carries on as well. And so, I mean, I guess in terms of the progress that you've made in terms of being an entrepreneur, I guess what mostly interested you in starting a company over being an educator? What was the primary thought there?
I think that being in the academia, and you are a PhD, so I'm sure that you have been there, it's a very tough and lonely life. Basically, you're competing with everyone, and there is not a lot of, let's say, teamwork. But also, it's very hard to publish and it's very hard to make a progress. And I think that you spend a lot of time in internal politics and try to receive a grant. And basically, at the end of the day, you don't have the freedom to research what you like because you need to run after the grants and find what the NIH or other agency really want you to do. And I showed that maybe by starting my own company, I can really do what I like to do, and I can contribute more to humanity and try to help human to live better, longer.
Yeah, Very good. Yeah, it's interesting to me. So my academic life more or less led me to this idea that I wanted to teach. And the closer that I got to teaching, not necessarily the research side, but more the education side, and watching the light bulb go on in students' heads whenever they really got something was really something that I enjoyed. Um, but if you kind of fast forward into even where we are now, a lot of it led more or less to plagiarism and tracking plagiarism in students and who was stealing things versus coming up with their own ideas. And I just kept telling the academic institutions I work for, look, I love what I do as a teacher. I hate what I have to do in terms of chasing down plagiarism. This just seems like a complete waste of good a good mind's use. And if your students are doing that, then maybe they shouldn't be in school, right? So I would have liked to have seen academic institutions with super strict rules about plagiarism, enough that you wouldn't do it if you wanted to remain a student and get a degree. So I mean, that was kind of my thinking behind it. But boy, it was as much as I love teaching students, I can sort of solve that a little bit with things like this, right? So the podcast for me is one way that I get to sort of draw out of the people that I interview, and hopefully gain a little bit more. But I was less on the research side and writing grants and things like that. So yeah. So in terms of wanting to study aging, what was it that made you want to focus there? I mean, there just seems like a vast landscape that you could have focused on.
Yeah, so from a very young age, I realized that I'm not immortal. It's something that happened to me early, and I assumed for other, it's happened usually at your 30s or 40s or 50s. For me, it's happened at the age of 12. A
Mm.
relative of mine passed, and instead of being sad about her, I was sad about myself that I won't live forever. And then that's basically pushed me to try to understand why do we die, why do we age, and how can we live longer. So that's why I decided to study biology. And as I said before, that's why I started to study aging at the Weizmann Institute and later on at MIT. And that's what actually led me to start InsideTracker.
Mm. Yeah, very good. So in terms of InsideTracker, what is it that you do at InsideTracker? What's the focus of the company?
Yeah, so we are trying to help human live better longer based on what's happening inside the body. So we started with blood biomarkers. I see blood biomarkers as a liquid gold. It's something that give you a lot of information, a lot of value. And actually, it's something that, if you think about it, our physicians are making a medical decision based on that. But they are basically treating a disease and not using it for prevention. So me and my co-founder said, why can't we use those biomarker, this liquid gold, to allow people to maintain their health, to delay the onset of diseases, to allow them to live longer? So we looked at a battery of blood biomarkers. Today we have 44 different blood biomarkers that helping us to look at you in a holistic way and let you understand what are the issues that you are facing today. And the issue might be small, and you might be normal in all the blood biomarkers, but you are not optimal. So optimal is, I need to define it because most people don't understand what does it mean. Optimal mean not enough that you are normal, basically you are not sick, but how can you be the further away from being sick? So we looked at those blood biomarkers and look at the peer review literature and compile a big databases of healthy human and try to understand what is the optimal zone for each person based on his age and gender and ethnicity and athletic activity and so on. And based on that, giving you or providing you an optimal zone. So even if you are in the normal zone, but you are not in the optimal zone, then we can start providing you with some recommendation of what food to eat, what supplement to take, what exercise to do, and what lifestyle changes to perform in order to optimize this biomarker. But then if you look at all the 44, it's you have almost unlimited the number of possibilities. So we develop an expert system, which is a sort of AI, artificial intelligence, that allow us to give you or provide you the best recommendation for you based, again, on all the biomarkers that not optimized, based on your goals, and based on a lot of questions that we are asking you, we can provide you recommendation. More recently, we also added on top of that your DNA, basically your potential. So we are looking at a DNA array of around 800,000 different single nucleotide polymorphism. And based on that, we are developing a score of a risk score of how high is the risk for you to have high cholesterol, or how high the risk for you to have high glucose or low vitamin D and so on. And then based on that, we combine the DNA with the blood and giving you a higher definition of assessment of where you are, and then giving you a better recommendations. And more recently, we also had the data from a fitness tracker. So looking at your sleep, REM sleep, deep sleep, awake time, total sleep, also resting heart rate. And currently we are adding something called HRV, heart rate variability, VO2 max, and other physiological markers. And all of that together can give us, again, a very high definition picture of your body, and then we can provide you a very good recommendation, again, of what food to eat, what supplement to take, exercise, and lifestyle changes.
That's very interesting, especially to me, because it's funny because I was just telling a personal coach that I have recently that I'm very frustrated by exercise right now. I'm doing a lot to try and control my diet. And so, that's the only way that I started to actually start to feel healthier. I measure my blood glucose and ketones, pretty frequently as well. And so at least with that data, I have some data as well, but I feel like the more I exercise, the more everything stays the same. So it'd be really interesting, as we were talking about, as we were coming into the show, I think for me, I personally would like to, try and take the test for, from InsideTracker to at least try and see, what data could be gleaned and what, is there an understanding in terms of, why things are limited the way that they are from a weight perspective, even though I feel like I'm exercising, sometimes like crazy. But it just gets frustrating because it feels like a waste of time, and I'm not somebody that feels like I have a lot of time to waste either. So, back to your longevity thing, if you can extend the clock, I would be, all for, trying to get the data and the insights as well.
Yeah, and your point is very good, because weight is one endpoint, but there are a lot of other endpoints. To maintain your weight will allow you most likely to improve your blood biomarkers, but there are a lot of other endpoints that it will be good to look at, like the level of your cholesterol and the level of your glucose and the level of your inflammation. And we haven't seen any user of InsideTracker so far that was optimal in all the blood biomarkers, meaning that everyone have a work to do in order to become optimal, become better, and then make yourself further away from being sick. And I think that that's a very important message for everyone. Each of us can be better, and it's not easy to do that before you have the information and the knowledge of what are the issues that you have. And most of us, or almost each of us, have his own issues. So knowledge is a power, and I think it's crucial for us to know what are the issues that we have, and then follow the intervention plan, and again, make yourself as further away from being sick.
Yeah. So, I mean, in terms of the products that you guys offer at InsideTracker, what does that look like? I mean, if I went to your website today, what are the products that you offer, and what are sort of the, I guess, ranges of things that you offer today?
Yeah, so we have a product battery starting with as simple as take your blood result from your physician and upload it into our platform. So we have a capability called OCR that basically extract the information from a piece of paper and upload it into our server and providing you the recommendation. That's definitely the cheapest one, but also the one that has the limited amount of blood biomarkers, because usually physician is not testing markers such as ferritin, which is a marker of issue with irons, or some hormones such as testosterone or cortisol, and some vitamin such as vitamin D or vitamin B12. So you'll get some value, but you won't receive the full value. In the other hand of the spectrum, we have a plan that's called Ultimate that have everything. It's more expensive, but then you have a better resolution of your body. And on top of that, in between or on top of those plan, we have a solution they call inner age, which is basically biological age that we can calculate based on your blood biomarkers. And then you can compare your chronological age to your biological age and see whether you are younger or older than your chronological age if you look at your blood biomarkers. So I think that it's a very nice solution because it's compile all the blood biomarkers into one number that allow you to understand, oh, I'm older, so I need to work harder. Or if you are younger, I would say you can still work harder to get even more younger. So I think that this battery of solution allow the users to understand where they are and then receive a very specific intervention of food, supplement, exercise, and lifestyle changes.
No, very good. Yeah, and then I saw as well that you offer. I mean, I don't venture to know the products like you do, but I saw as well that you offer repeat testing as well. So don't just do this once, but like do it, maybe once a quarter. Was
Yeah.
one of the options as well that I saw on the website.
Yeah, and that's a very important point, and thank you so much for raising it, Don. Um, it's not enough to test once because I'm a scientist, you are a scientist, so we know one test is 1 point, two tests is 2 point, three or above is actually you can see the trend.
Mm-hmm.
So in order to see the trend, you need to test again and again and again. And also when you have the trend or the baseline, you can suddenly see, hey, my inflammation jumped, or my cholesterol jumped, or my glucose jumped, and then you can know, hey, something is wrong. But if you don't have the baseline, you will never know whether it's up and when. So I think that it's a repeat testing is very important. And I really like the analogy to the car. We are taking our car to the technician every 5,000 miles. The technician plug a computer into the car, and the computer telling the technician what he should do in order to allow the car to drive another 5,000 miles. But then after 5,000 miles, you do it again and again and again. And there is a research that showed that the lifespan of the car increased from around 100,000 miles to around 200,000 miles just by doing this routine maintenance. So InsideTracker is very similar for humans. Let's test you, and today we cannot connect a computer into our brain yet. Hopefully, in the future we would. But what we can is connect a needle into our vein, extract a liquid gold that will tell us where we are, and then based on that, we'll give you the intervention plan. You'll follow the intervention plan, and then 5,000 miles later, or are you said a quarter or 2 quarter later, you will test again. You might have a slightly modified plan because we are changing all the time. And then if we'll do it again and again and again, maybe that will allow us to live better longer.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's funny because I've seen um, I've seen like the next generation sequencing data that's come out as well, and then you see quite frequently, in cancer patients, for example, you'll see where the DNA just doesn't quite match up anymore, and that's what's essentially causing these tumor anomalies, as well. And what sort of has has made me kind of question this over time is that if you could see that well in advance, could you, prevent something long term? And to me, that's where what you guys are doing, ties as well. So I wanted to try and take the walk from the point that, okay, so somebody comes and they buy the test at InsideTracker. There's a blood test that's involved in this. And so you go to a local lab, I assume, to have the blood extracted. Okay. And then after the blood is analyzed by your team, then is there a visit with a discussion with a live human being then, or do you just send the results, or, how does that part work?
Yeah, so we have a mobile app, or you can go on the web, and our expert system present to you all the blood biomarkers and showing you whether you are normal, out of the normal, optimal, or out of the optimal. Then we are combining all of that together and allowing you to select a goal. So you can say your goal can be, I want to sleep better, I want to distress, or I want to live longer. And we have around 12 goals like that. And based on that, based on the goal, based on your blood biomarkers that are not optimized, based on all the information that we have from you, and based on a massive amount of peer-reviewed scientific publication, we are bubbling up for you the 10 or so most important recommendation for you. So for example, eat more oatmeal, or sleep a bit more, or drink this kind of drink, or exercise more HIIT than strength exercise, or whatever it's fit for you. Then you follow those recommendations, and we have a few tools that allow you to check in. We have a tool that sends you a daily tip that we call a pro tip. For example, if you have a fitness tracker such as the Apple Watch or Garmin or Fitbit, you can connect it. And then when we see that you haven't slept well, we can give you a tip. How can you sleep better the next night? Or if your resting heart rate is too high, how can you decrease your resting heart rate? Or if you went for an exercise, after the exercise, we'll send you a tip that tell you how can you recover from the exercise. You should drink this amount of water, you should eat this amount of protein, this amount of carbohydrate, and it's all very personalized for you. And then a few months later, you can test again for blood, and see what is the progress, and also receive a new plan based on the result that we received from you in the last time.
Very interesting. Yeah, I mean, I think that it makes an awful lot of sense as well. I kind of smiled at one point in your story, one because my wife oftentimes struggles a lot more than I do with sleep. I seem to, the minute that I'm horizontal, close my eyes, I mean, I can go to sleep pretty quick. But for whatever reason, she's never been able to. So it'd be interesting to know what her levels are to understand why she doesn't sleep. But we both wear health trackers that indicate better, sort of our sleep and recovery patterns and things like that, just because of you're just wanting to make sure that we know more. And to me, having more data as somebody with a scientific mind is something that I enjoy. I mean, just having the information helps me. It doesn't overwhelm me, because that's one of the things that I know some people struggle with as well, is that, just too much information about what's going on wouldn't be helpful. The one question I had for you was in terms of the numbers of people that are doing this now. I mean, are you seeing a good number of people that are wanting to get this kind of information?
Yeah, it's warming my heart to see how the company grew, or how this domain is growing. And just about the company, we have seen in the last few years a growth of more than 100% year over year in the last few years of our revenue and our users. So we are growing very fast and very rapid. And I think that it's part of it is because the product become better, but also I think that a big part of it is that I think that there is a better understanding of us as a human, that a lot of is under our control, and we can optimize ourselves. So there are a lot of people like you and me that understand that and want to receive more information, and they are not satisfied by the yearly physical with the physician that telling you you're not sick and go home and they come in a year. People want to take a control. People want to understand what's happening in their body. They know that the most important and the most precious machine that they have is themselves, and they want to understand it and treat it in the best way that they could. So I think that, in my opinion, is the revolution that is happening and it will continue to happen, and we are just in the beginning. So if you will ask me what will happen in 10 or 20 years, it will be part of the norm for people to do all of those tests and basically try to prevent instead of treat the sick people.
Yeah, wouldn't that be amazing to to be at that point as well? So I wanted
Yeah.
to talk to you a little bit about another organization that you're involved with, and I believe it's called Science Abroad. So you're the co-founder of Science Abroad, and I wanted to just ask you, what is it that they do?
Yeah, so just as a background, when I arrived to the US, to Boston, I've seen a lot of Israeli scientists that are working in the university and doesn't know and doesn't understand how can they come back to Israel. And I felt very bad about that because there are a lot of smart people in Israel, and a lot of those smart people are spending time in the US universities but not coming back because they don't know how to come back. So I started to arrange some meeting and some communication with university in Israel. And with time, this organization become bigger and bigger and more successful. And today we have more than 4,000 scientists, Israeli scientists that live abroad. We made hundreds of them to move back to Israel. We are working with the Israeli government, with a lot of the different secretary of the government. And the organization grew significantly. Currently, I'm not an active, fully active there. I'm more like on the board and helping the CEO and the team to operate this organization. We have also a lot of volunteers, and we have around 40 different locations that our volunteers are managing the chapter all over the US, Canada, Australia, and Europe. So it's become a big organization, and I feel very proud that I started it, even so that I'm not running it right now. I feel proud of the volunteers and the people that are running this organization.
Yeah, it's very, very important as well, and to be able to be connected along with pathways to take you where you want or need to go as well.
Yeah.
From a professional perspective is important as well. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it. So there are 3 questions that I like to ask every guest. What inspires you?
Yeah, so I think that we touched it a bit before, but I'm feel inspired by the new movement that try to declare aging as a disease,
Mm.
because cancer today is a disease, and cardiovascular diseases, and diabetes is a disease, but aging is not considered to be a disease. And because it's not a disease, then the NIH or other organizations are not dedicating enough fund for that. So I think that there is a lot of movement and in the academic society, especially in the aging research, to declare aging as a disease. But in parallel to that, as we discussed before, there is a high interest in longevity from so many people that it's really warming my heart to see people are listening to podcasts, and a lot of people that writing and a lot of articles about that, and also a lot of companies that starting to work on longevity, which is in my opinion it's very good, because when I started InsideTracker we were alone, and now there is a lot of happening in this domain, which I think that it's very good for the field, and I think that it's very good for the human society.
Yeah. And I've seen a mix of both. I've seen a mix of both good things as well as bad things that are happening with regards to aging. I feel like there's a lot of information that I don't understand how it could be scientific. And then there are other, other companies like yours where you're basing something off of a blood-based test that, has scientific backing that, I just, yeah, I mean, I'm seeing kind of both sides of that. And I would, hope that one group, the more scientific group, sort of pushes out the other individuals, or maybe even challenges them to increase their thoughts around these things as well, as we go into the future.
Absolutely.
What concerns you?
Yeah, so I think that it's touched what I discussed before, that even so that we have so much information, so much knowledge, and we can receive so much guidance, so many of us eat poorly, don't exercise, don't sleep enough, and are under too much stress and pressure. So I think that it's concerned me because we have so much information and we know what we should do, but still a lot of us because of being, I don't know, because of knowing that it's hard, or because of the inertia, deciding not to follow the science. So I think that that's something that concerns me. I see a lot of progress in the last, let's say, few years, but still there are a lot of people that are not doing or not treating their body in the best way that they can do.
Yeah, and I mean, for myself, right? I mean, I know my BMI is too high, right? So, I mean, a high BMI could mean a lot of different things, but the things that I've seen inside of my family, we have a high incidence of cancer and we have a high incidence of heart disease. So by carrying a high BMI, essentially I'm agreeing to, like potentially be a patient for one of these ailments. And so that's my sort of, reason behind it. I know there's a lot of reasons why people want information and want to sort of explore these things, but I agree with you. I mean, I think having information and denying to do the things that you need to do to change your life is also not right either. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Last question: what excites you?
Yeah, that so what excites me is the notion that we can live much longer, and just by making a small changes to our life, eat better, sleep better, exercise better. So some of us are exercising too much, some of us are not exercising at all. So I think that changing our behaviors, changing our nutrition, and changing our lifestyle can make a lot of change for the good. And I think that that's exciting because we can do it and we have the control, and it's just a matter of us doing it.
Yeah, I think it was one of the other interviews that you had done on one of a different podcast around cycling. You cycle, correct?
Yes.
Yeah. And you were talking about the fact that sometimes our bodies react in different ways to over exercise as well, that we at least need to be aware of what our bodies are kind of signaling to us, that it may need more recovery time and things.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, today I came from the West Coast on the red-eye flight, so I'm taking the day easy. I don't need to kill myself because I love exercising, but today I'm taking it easy. So you need to listen to your body and know when you should work hard and when you should let the body rest. And again, it's like a machine. You cannot over activate your body.
Yeah. All right. So now that we're at the end of the interview, I wanted to ask you one last thing. So if somebody wanted to find out more about InsideTracker, where would they go, and how would they get started with potentially ordering the test or investigating more about what you do?
Yeah, it's simple. They can come to InsideTracker.com. And basically all the information is there. They can order a test based on their budget and based on their needs. They can go from something that is a bit simpler, or go for the all biomarker, the panel called Ultimate. They can order one or they can order more. And I agree with you that it's better to do at least two tests, if not more, in order to find the baseline and see what is the follow-up. And if they have any question, we have a very good team that can give them the support, and we have a good reputation of um, helping our users and supporting them, and we even have some social support that groups in Facebook and other places that our users are asking questions, and our team answering, and our user are helping the person that asks questions. So we have a pretty good, a very well a community of users that are very motivated, and is growing every day.
Very good. Well, Dr. Gil Blander, thank you so much for being here and sharing everything that you're doing at InsideTracker. I greatly appreciate your time and for being here.
Thank you so much, Don. It was a pleasure.
Thank you for listening to Life Science Success. For complete details about this podcast, including show notes, how to get in touch with guests, and more episodes, please visit www.lifesciencesuccess.com. If there's someone you'd like for us to invite to the show as a guest, please let me know by sending me a message at the podcast website. Please click subscribe on your favorite podcast app, share the podcast, or tell a friend about it. And last but not least, rate the podcast. Thank you again.